I walked in on my husband and my dad kissing and laughing about conning me into signing the house over. They sold it behind my back, called me a burden, and were moving to Spain. Until I found the spare phone taped under his desk and exposed everything. I swear I stopped breathing when I walked into the living room and saw my husband and my dad kissing. Not a confused, drunken peck. Full-on kissing. Hands on each other. Laughing. Whispering. My dad's shirt half untucked, my husband's belt open like they hadn't even bothered hiding anything anymore. They didn't see me at first. I was standing there frozen, my grocery bags digging into my fingers, strawberries rolling across the floor. And then, like in some sick movie, my husband pulled back, wiped his mouth, and said, "She actually signed it. Told you she would. Women are too emotional to own property." My dad laughed, my dad, the man who raised me, or at least pretended to. "She's always been a burden, you just have to push her the right way." I didn't move, I didn't cry. I didn't even make a sound. I just listened as they went on, completely relaxed, talking like I was some clueless idiot who'd been born just to be used. My husband said, once the wire clears were done. Spain by the end of the month. "You'll love it, clean break." My dad clapped him on the back. "She'll think the house sale was some paperwork mistake. She always believes whatever she's told." I felt something inside me crack, not a clean break, more like tearing fabric. Because there it was, the thing I'd been trying not to believe for months, the weird distance, the money that accidentally kept disappearing, my husband pushing me to put the house in his name for tax reasons. My dad suddenly being around more, giving advice I never asked for, telling me I needed to grow up and trust my husband more. And they were behind all of it. I backed away before they saw me, moved down the hallway on autopilot, and slipped into my husband's office. I don't know why I went there. Maybe because it felt like the one place I was always told not to touch. Maybe because everything felt too big and too loud, and I needed a wall to lean against. I shut the door quietly and slid to the floor, shaking so hard I thought the laminate under me was vibrating. I kept hearing my dad's voice in my head, the same man who used to tuck me in at night, calling me a burden like it was a joke. I don't know how long I sat like that. 5 minutes, 30. Time didn't feel real, but something snapped me out of it. A faint buzzing, very faint, like a vibration muffled by wood. It was coming from under the desk. At first I thought maybe I was losing it. But no, the sound was steady. I crouched down and reached under the desk, running my hand along the underside until my fingers hit something rough. Tape. And then plastic. A phone. A literal spare phone taped under his desk. I ripped it off the wood and unlocked it without thinking. No passcode, just open access like he didn't expect me to ever find it, like I was too stupid to look. And there it all was. Messages between him and my dad. Voice notes. Screenshots of bank transfers. Conversations about selling the house weeks before I signed anything. An entire thread about how much money they could squeeze out of my family's real estate connections once she's out of the way. Then I saw the newest voice message. 30 seconds long, sent less than an hour ago. I pressed play. My dad's voice came through, calm and cold in a way that made every hair on my arms stand up. "Make sure she doesn't find the envelope. If she figures out what we did before the flight, she's going to ruin everything." What envelope? And what exactly had they done? My stomach dropped as the vibration buzzed again, another message coming in. I raised the phone closer to read it. And that's when someone turned the office doorknob. I didn't open the door right away. I just held my breath and stared at the knob as it twitched, like whoever was on the other side wasn't sure if they should come in or not. When it finally stopped moving, I stayed frozen for another full minute, listening for footsteps. Nothing, just the low hum of the AC and the faint buzz of that spare phone still in my hand. I shouldn't have been shocked. That's the worst part. Because if I'm honest, things had been off for a long time. So off that a small voice in my head had been trying to warn me, and I just kept shoving it down. I met my husband, Aaron, 5 years ago in Sacramento. He was charming in that effortless way some people just are. He listened. He asked questions. He made me feel seen at a time I was drowning at work, trying to stay afloat in my family's real estate company while my dad nitpicked every move I made. My dad always acted like my brother should have inherited the leadership role, even though he moved to Seattle and wanted nothing to do with the business. So I stepped up. I learned everything. I stayed late. I took every class, read every book, made every meeting. Still, nothing was ever enough for him. So when Aaron came along, patient, soft-spoken, telling me I was smart and capable and deserved respect, I clung to that. He didn't just make me feel loved. He made me feel valid. My dad loved him instantly, which I thought was sweet at the time. I thought, finally, someone he approves of. Someone who doesn't make me feel like I'm failing just by breathing. If only I'd known. The first year of marriage was fine. Normal. But year 2, things shifted. Aaron started criticizing tiny things, how I folded towels, how I handled client calls, how I talked too much in meetings. Nothing huge on its own, but constant enough to wear me down. And my dad, he started echoing him. You should listen to your husband. He understands business better than you do. Stop being emotional. It felt like the two people who were supposed to love me most had synced up into the same voice. Then the house thing happened. The house I bought before meeting Aaron. The house I renovated with my own money. The house that was my escape from the chaos of my childhood. One night over dinner, they cornered me with some tax strategy nonsense. My dad saying I was risking serious liability. Aaron going on about how married couples should consolidate assets. I resisted. They pushed harder. My dad got angry, really angry, in that old way that made me shrink. And Aaron kept saying, "It's just paperwork, babe, you trust me, right?" It took 2 months of pressure, guilt, and emotional whiplash, but eventually I gave in. Signed the papers. Told myself it wasn't a big deal. Told myself this was what functioning families did. And the entire time, they were already planning to sell it behind my back. Now, sitting on the floor of that office with the spare phone glowing in my hands, I felt stupid for every red flag I'd ignored. The secretive phone calls between them. The sudden guys' nights my dad started inviting Aaron to. The weird coldness when I walked into rooms. Even the times I found my dad in our house when Aaron wasn't home, him saying he just stopped by to drop something off. It all made sense now in the worst possible way. Because they weren't just betraying me. They were colluding. And whatever was in that envelope my dad mentioned, whatever they were afraid I'd find, I had a feeling that was only the beginning of how bad this really was. I stood up, wiped my face, and grabbed the phone tighter. If there was an envelope, I was going to find it. No matter what was inside. I didn't even realize how hard my hands were shaking until I tried to open the desk drawers and the metal handles clinked from the tremor. I kept replaying that voice message in my mind, my dad's calm warning, like I was some problem they needed to contain. And the way he said, the envelope, like it was the one thing that could blow everything open. The office looked normal at first glance. Too normal. Aaron was obsessive about keeping it clean, to the point where I wasn't allowed to touch anything in there unless he was home. But now that I was looking for something, I noticed little things I'd ignored before. Scuffs on the side of the filing cabinet, a tiny scratch mark near the bookshelf, a rug that didn't sit flush against the floor like it used to. I pulled the rug back slowly. Nothing underneath. I checked behind the books, running my fingers along the edges to feel for gaps. Still nothing. The whole time, my mind wouldn't quit spinning. I kept hearing Aaron and my dad laughing in the living room. I wondered if they were still there, or if they'd gone outside or upstairs, or, worst case, realized I'd heard something and were now looking for me. I forced myself to breathe and moved to the closet. That was when I saw it, a small metal lockbox pushed behind a stack of old tax folders. Not hidden well, which made me suspicious. Aaron wasn't sloppy. He was calculated to the point of cruelty. So either this wasn't it, or he wanted it to look unimportant. The box wasn't locked, not even latched properly, as if someone opened it in a hurry and shoved it back without checking. Inside were random things, passport copies, spare keys, old receipts, a flash drive, and a thick plain white envelope with my name written on it in my dad's handwriting. My stomach twisted. I didn't open it right away. I don't know why, maybe because something in me knew my life would look different after I did. Before I could decide, the spare phone buzzed again. A new message, from my dad. "We need to stick to the plan. She'll break fast if it comes to that." Break? Break how? Break fast? My whole chest tightened. I backed into the closet and closed the door just enough to see through the crack. Footsteps creaked down the hallway, slow, measured. Not the casual stride of someone moving around their own house. More like someone listening for noise. Checking rooms. It was Aaron. I could see the shadow before I saw him. He paused outside the office door for a solid 10 seconds like he was smelling for a trap. Then he pushed it open. He didn't come inside. He just stood in the doorway, scanning the place like he was trying to read the air. My heart was slamming so loud I was sure he'd hear it. I pressed my hand over my mouth and forced myself not to breathe too deeply. After another long pause, he walked away. Slowly, purposefully, toward the kitchen. I waited until I heard the fridge open, then close, then footsteps heading to the backyard door. Only after he stepped outside did I exhale. I pulled the envelope into my lap. It was heavier than I expected, thick with papers. My name written in that harsh, slanted script my dad always used when he was irritated. I slid my thumb under the flap. Inside was the last thing I could have imagined. Letters, documents, a printed email chain between my husband and my father, one that dated back before I married Aaron, before I even met him. And the first line I saw made my whole body go cold. I met her today, she'll be easy to groom. My vision blurred. There were more pages, so many more. But before I could read further, the backyard door slammed shut, and heavy footsteps started coming back down the hallway faster than before. I didn't have time to think. I stuffed the envelope under my shirt, grabbed the spare phone, and slipped out of the closet just as Aaron's shadow crossed back into the hallway. I ducked behind the bookshelf, heart punching hard against the papers hidden against my ribs. He entered the office again, but this time with purpose. Not searching, hunting. "Alyssa," he called out, voice too calm. "You home?" My throat tightened. He only used my full name when he wanted to intimidate me, when he wanted me to feel small. He stood still in the middle of the room. His eyes scanned everything, slower than before, somehow sharper too, like he was taking a mental inventory of every object. Then he whispered something under his breath. Too quiet for me to catch, but whatever it was made him smile. He turned to the desk, crouched down, and checked under it. When he saw the tape that used to hold the phone, his face tightened, just a flicker, but enough to tell me he knew someone had been there. He reached into the trash can and pulled out a pair of latex gloves. My stomach dropped. He put them on calmly, pulling each finger tight. Then he reached into the drawer and pulled out a zip tie. Just one. Thick, industrial, the kind police use. He slipped it into his back pocket and walked out of the room without another word. I didn't move until I heard the front door creak open, then shut. I scrambled out from behind the shelf and closed the office door quietly. My hands were shaking so violently, I had to press them against the desk to get them to stop. I pulled the envelope back out. I forced myself to read. The first page was an email from my father to someone named David G., a real estate consultant I vaguely remembered meeting years ago at a conference. The date was 2 months before I ever met Aaron. "She's stubborn, smart, has more spine than she lets on. If we're going to make this work, he'll have to soften her up." The reply came from my dad's personal email, the one he always told me not to use because it was for private business matters. That's why I'm meeting him Wednesday. He understands the assignment. Him, Aaron, before I even knew his name. My hands clenched around the page. The next document was worse, copies of texts between my dad and Aaron using burner numbers. "Dad, she trusts too quickly. Get close to her mother's side of the business. They like you. Aaron, you want me proposing by summer? Dad, do it. We can restructure everything once she's married in." I felt sick. Page after page, messages about manipulating me, isolating me, wearing me down emotionally, and even strategizing how to position Aaron within my family's company. But the worst part, the printed flight confirmations at the end. 2 one-way tickets from San Francisco to Barcelona. Departure 2 weeks from today. Both tickets were in their names, not mine. I flipped through the last few pages, hands trembling, and then I found the photograph. A picture of Aaron and my dad together at a restaurant. Not recent, years old. Taken before Aaron ever accidentally bumped into me at that farmer's market in Midtown, where he acted like he didn't even know who I was. They were sitting close, their hands touching, a wine bottle between them, and a handwritten note on the back, "First meeting, she'll never see it coming." My whole body went cold. They hadn't just fallen into some twisted affair. They had planned everything, every moment, every conversation, every manipulation. My marriage wasn't real. My father's affection wasn't real. My life, my whole life, had been the product of their scheme. Suddenly, the floorboards creaked in the hallway, then a familiar voice drifted down the hall. My dad. Alyssa, are you home? We need to talk. He was early, he wasn't supposed to be here. And worse, he sounded angry. I froze when I heard my dad's voice drifting down the hallway, steady, irritated, like he already knew something was wrong. He wasn't supposed to show up unannounced. He never did, not without texting first. Which meant Aaron had already contacted him. Which meant they knew. The envelope crinkled against my ribs as I slid it deeper under my shirt and stepped back into the closet. I needed time, just a minute to think. But my dad didn't give people time. He took it away. Alyssa, he called again, closer this time. He was walking down the hallway with that heavy, impatient stride I recognized from childhood, the sound that always made me brace myself. I forced myself to breathe slowly, quietly. Every inhale felt like swallowing glass. He stepped into the office. Alyssa, his tone dropped lower, colder. I know you're here. I kept still in the closet. I could see him through the crack in the door. His face was tight, lips pressed together like he'd rehearsed being angry. He looked around the office. His eyes went straight to the desk, then to the floor beneath it. When he saw the strip of tape still stuck there, he exhaled sharply through his nose. Then he whispered, "Damn it." That was my confirmation. They knew the spare phone was gone. He checked the trash, the drawers, even the rug. He knew this space as well as Aaron did. Maybe better, he muttered. She found something. My stomach twisted. Then he walked toward the closet. I didn't wait. I slipped out the side, moving silently along the wall like I used to when avoiding him as a teenager. I stepped into the hallway just as he opened the closet door behind me. He didn't see me leave. I made it to the bathroom and locked the door. I pressed my back against the tile, breath shaking out of me in short bursts. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scared of him. I was furious. Furious that he used me, groomed me, sold me out to a man he was already involved with. Furious that he had planned my entire adult life like I was some bargaining chip. I pulled out the envelope and dumped everything onto the counter. Papers fanned out everywhere. The photographs slid into the sink. The email chains fluttered like white flags that meant nothing. There were enough documents in front of me to burn both of them to the ground. And finally, something clicked in my brain. I didn't have to run. I didn't have to hide. I didn't have to wait to be broken, like he said in that message. I could plan. I could hit back harder than either of them expected. My dad's weakness was his reputation. Aaron's was his arrogance. The business, the money, the property, everything they thought they'd taken from me. None of it mattered compared to what I was about to take from them. But I needed evidence. Not just printed emails. I needed backup, screenshots, videos, audio. I turned the spare phone back on. There were dozens of voice memos. Text threads, deleted files recoverable from the storage folder, financial details, bank instructions, passport scans, even audio of them talking about ways to make sure she doesn't interfere. Every new file felt like a match in my hand. I grabbed Aaron's laptop from the bedroom next door. He always left it logged in. Arrogance again. I mirrored the entire spare phone onto his cloud drive. That alone would hurt them later. Then I backed up everything to my own email. Then to 2 external drives. Then I uploaded copies to 3 hidden folders in cloud accounts they didn't know existed. By the time I stopped, my anger had sharpened into something surgical. This wasn't panic anymore. It was strategy. I wiped my face, gathered the envelope, slid everything into my tote bag, and stood in front of the mirror. My reflection didn't look broken. It looked like someone who had finally woken up. From the hallway, I heard my dad call out again, closer, sharper, angrier. "Alyssa, stop hiding. We need to fix this before Aaron gets back." Fix this. Not fix what he did. Fix the problem of me knowing. Fine, let him try. Because I was done being their puppet. And I had already decided exactly how I was going to ruin them. I slipped out the bathroom window. Not because I was scared of facing my dad. I wasn't anymore. But because I needed space to think without him pounding on the door, without his voice filling my head the way it had my entire life. The window opened onto the side yard, hidden by tall hedges Aaron insisted on planting for privacy. Funny how that privacy was suddenly useful to me. I crouched low, moved around the house, and crossed the street to my car. I didn't turn it on yet. I just sat there with the tote bag full of documents and the spare phone glowing in my lap. My father wanted to fix the situation before Aaron got back. Meaning, contain me. But the thing burning in my mind wasn't fear. It was something else, something sharper, cold, and almost electric. I unlocked the spare phone again. There were unread messages, 3 of them, all from a number labeled DG David G, the consultant from years ago. The guy who'd been advising my father behind the scenes. I opened the first text. You need to finish phase 2. She cannot find out about the trust. We're exposed if she figures out how you used her name. I read it twice. Used my name? For what? My stomach nodded. I opened the next message. Did Erin sign the final authorization? The account won't stay hidden if she starts looking into her credit reports. I froze. Credit reports. They used my name financially, and not just for the house. I scrolled faster, heart pounding. The third message was longer. Spain is not optional anymore. Once the transfer hits, you both need to leave before her audit triggers. If she files anything, she can undo the trust and then all 3 of us go down. Do not let her see the binder. The binder. Another thing I didn't know existed. But that wasn't the twist. The twist came when I scrolled up, farther, through weeks of messages, until I found a thread from 2 months ago. Sent from my father. Are you sure she won't check her credit report? David replied. Why would she? You said she's emotional. Emotional people don't check numbers. I felt sick. Then I saw the next message. From my dad, I'll keep her distracted. Erin will keep her compliant. Compliant. My own father was talking about me like I was a stubborn pet, not a human being. But then, buried deeper in the thread, came the real shock. A full message chain forwarded from my father's email to David's. In it, there were scanned forms, authorization signatures, loan documents, trust agreements, all signed with my name. Except they weren't my signatures, they were forged. And in one of the email attachments, highlighted in yellow, was the name of the trust. AHR Legacy Trust, primary beneficiary, Erin R.A. Trust set up in my name, funded with my credit, to benefit Erin. I felt the wind knocked out of me. They hadn't just used me for the house. They dug deeper into federal-level fraud, identity theft, property manipulation, unauthorized credit accounts, a hidden trust tying all of it together. The entire relationship hadn't just been emotional manipulation. It was financial engineering. My entire life had been turned into their business plan. And then, with a jolt, I realized something that made my stomach drop even further. The audit David mentioned, it wasn't theoretical. It was already happening. A notification I'd ignored 2 weeks ago, a tiny letter from the IRS I'd shoved in a drawer, flashed into my memory. They thought I didn't know. They thought I wouldn't understand. But now I understood too much. And then, just as I was processing the magnitude of what they'd done, the spare phone buzzed again. A new voice memo, from Erin. I tapped it with trembling fingers. His voice came through low, icy, controlled. We need to get Alyssa to sign the dissolution tonight. Your father said he can keep her calm long enough for me to get home. Once she signs, we isolate her for 24 hours and then we're done. You know the plan. Dissolution. Isolate her? Done. I didn't know what they meant exactly, but I knew I wasn't supposed to survive it. I didn't start the car. I didn't even move. I just sat there with the phone in my hands, replaying that voice memo until every word carved itself into my brain. Dissolution, isolate her. Done. They weren't planning to leave me. They were planning to erase me, and I needed to understand why. Not the surface reasons, the money, the business, the tax benefits. Those were tools. Those were excuses. There was something deeper, something darker. I scrolled back through the messages. I read them slower this time. Line by line, every insult, every direction, every cold, calculated detail. And that's when I found the thread that explained everything. The thread that made every hair on my arms rise. It was from my dad. Sent months ago. Subject line, her mother. I opened it. Inside were 2 paragraphs, just 2 simple, emotionless paragraphs that shattered everything I thought I knew. You were right about her. She's just like her mother, soft, trusting, naive. She ruined everything for me back then, and I won't let her daughter do the same. So yes, we move forward. I'll play the father. You play the husband. When it's done, we clean the slate and start over without her. My vision blurred. I blinked hard, forcing myself to keep reading. The reply from David was worse. If you want to avoid another lawsuit, she cannot know what you did with the inheritance. Keep her in the dark, keep her obedient. Erin understands the psychology, this will work. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. My mother died when I was 16. A car accident. At least, that's what I'd been told. My dad never talked about it. He'd shut down every time I tried. But this wasn't about a car accident. This was about something my dad did, something involving her inheritance, something my mother must have discovered before she died. And he believed I'd eventually discover it too. I scrolled further. More emails, more chilling bluntness. She was always going to be a liability. Her mother started questioning the trust accounts, and I couldn't let her interfere. I won't repeat the same mistake. My hands went ice cold around the phone. I couldn't let her interfere. What did that mean? What had he done? What had he covered up after my mother died? And then, the final line, the one that turned my blood to stone. If Alyssa figures out what happened in 2009, we all go down. That's why Aaron was necessary. She listens to him, she trusts him, that's what makes her useful. Useful, just useful, not loved, not cared for, not even seen. Useful the way someone thinks of a tool, or a resource, or a problem that needs managing. My whole life, every fight, every criticism, every suffocating advice, session, every guilt trip, had been about control. Pure control. He hadn't raised me to be independent, he'd raised me to be pliable. Aaron wasn't the mastermind. Aaron wasn't even the central betrayal. My father was. He didn't just participate, he orchestrated everything. And he wasn't doing it for love. He wasn't doing it for business. He wasn't even doing it for money, at least not in the simple way I thought. He was doing it because my mother had stood up to him once, and he'd never forgiven her for it. I stared out the car window at my house, at the life I thought I built, at the man inside who'd been placed into my world like a weapon. I finally understood the truth. My husband manipulated me because he was trained to. But my father, he manipulated me because it was who he was. Cold, calculating, cruel down to the bone, and he was willing to destroy his own daughter to protect a secret he'd buried for 16 years. But he made one mistake. He taught me how to endure pain, and now he was about to learn what I could do with it. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't even shake anymore. Something inside me had gone still, calm in a way I'd never felt before. Like the part of me that used to flinch around my father had burned out completely. I knew what I had to do. Not run, not beg, not hide, destroy them. I drove straight to my friend Marisol's place across town. She buzzed me up without even asking why I looked like I'd crawled out of a war zone. She didn't question me when I spread out the documents on her kitchen island. She just read, silent and wide-eyed, until she whispered, "Alyssa, this is federal." "Exactly," I said, and that was the point. We scanned everything, organized every file, every screenshot, every voice memo. I backed it all up again, then again. 6 copies total. I left one with Marisol, one in a safe deposit box, one scheduled to email automatically to 3 attorneys and a local journalist if I didn't disable the timer by noon the next day. Then I called a lawyer, someone my dad didn't know I still talked to, a woman my mother once trusted. She didn't hesitate. "Bring everything," she said. "Tonight." I did. When she finished reading, she leaned back and said, "Your father won't survive this professionally. Your husband won't survive it legally." "Good," I said. We filed emergency reports with the FBI's Identity Theft Division, the IRS, and the California Department of Real Estate. Every agency wanted more. They wanted statements. They wanted timelines. They wanted copies of everything. I gave them everything. It took hours, but by the time I left her office, the first flag had already been placed on the trust account. Within 24 hours, the transfers would freeze. They weren't going to Spain. They weren't going anywhere. When I finally drove home, it was near midnight. The house was dark, too dark. I walked inside anyway. Aaron sat on the couch in the living room where I'd found him kissing my father hours earlier. His hands were clasped. His eyes were cold. "You've been busy," he said. I didn't answer. I turned on the lamp. My dad stepped into the room from the hallway. "Alyssa," he said, using the careful tone he only used when he wanted to contain my reaction. "Let's talk." I set my bag down and looked at them, really looked at them. 2 men who thought they were smarter than everyone. 2 men who'd planned my life like a spreadsheet. "You should check your accounts," I said quietly. My dad frowned. "What does that mean?" "You'll see." Aaron's jaw twitched. "What did you do?" "I told the truth," I said. To the people who needed to hear it. They didn't understand, not yet. Not until both their phones lit up with notifications a few seconds later. I watched it hit them in real time. Freeze notices, fraud alerts, account suspensions, investigation inquiries, legal requests, federal warnings. My dad's face drained of color. Alyssa, what did you? You groomed me, I said. You used me, you stole my name, you stole my life, and you thought I'd just roll over the way Mom did. He flinched at that. Good. Aaron stood, stepping forward like he could intimidate me back into silence. You don't know what you're doing. I held up my phone and pressed play. His voice filled the room, his own words from the spare phone. Once she signs, we isolate her for 24 hours and then we're done. His face changed, like a mask cracking. I stepped back toward the door. Oh, I added, and you should expect visitors soon, probably early morning. They were very interested in both of you. I didn't stay to watch them panic. I didn't need to. I walked out of the house I no longer legally owned, but that they no longer owned either. By the next afternoon, the FBI had raided my dad's office. Aaron was picked up the same evening. Their Spain tickets were flagged as evidence. Everything collapsed exactly the way they deserved. I stayed with Marisol for a while. I cried once. Slept for 12 hours. Ate actual food. Let myself feel everything I'd shoved down for years. Healing wasn't pretty, but it was mine. And the last thing my lawyer said before filing the final stack of paperwork was, "You didn't just survive them, you buried them." Good, because some people don't get redemption arcs. Some people only learn when you take away the power they stole. And honestly, it felt damn good to finally take mine back.